thing to mitigate that risk. The second quote they had in there, I don't necessarily agree with because it's set up completely differently with federal funding, directed towards rebuilding infrastructure so the town businesses can resume. That's where, when an emergency is declared, that you're going to get refunded that money anyway. Now, the resiliency fund could forward load that and immediately get you off the ground. And I'm not trying to dip into the 6.7 million reserve, but if you have the 6.7 million reserve, is that really needed per se? But you know, like Buffalo, when they get the snowfall events, keep your receipts because you're going to get refunded for snowfall removal during a federal emergency type thing. This could fund that forwardly and then rebuild it at the end, but all that is a rainy day revolving door. It's not even a rainy day fund at that point. But I will say, you know, living by the water, the biggest resiliency and biggest threat is sea level rise. But we also have the heat sink effect. We have the urban tree canopy, the resiliency of bike riding, you know, removing carbon emissions off the roads. There are several levels that this fund can fit into, which can also help, you know, help lift up a grant application with skin in the game, so to speak. I was responsible for several grant writing efforts in Cambridge, and they had no skin in the game. And we were told point blank, if you had 10% in this, you'd have been slam dunk.
Interesting. Just being mindful of time. Joe and I were just chatting. What I think I'd like to do, or what we would like to do, is set up another group of two, and Joe has agreed to do this with me, with Eleanor and Janet and you guys. I think what we need to do is, this is great information for us to start, and then we'll work with you to get a proposal back. Not fully how it's funded, but like a scope, like, pardon me?
The purpose.
Yes, the purpose of this, what it's for, what the guardrails would have to be on it, so it doesn't become like a second general fund.
Yes.
But so we'll take it, if that's fine with everybody here, we'll take it that next step and work with you guys offline. And I'm glad that you mentioned it's not just sea level, it is tree canopy. You know, what are the issues for Lewis? It's flooding, heat, wind. Okay, those are the environmental impacts, which typically this is on, but how you use it. And then I think we have to have a talk with BPW, because we don't want to double it and then at all, but what are the tools we would use for it? So
Right.
I think this is a great primer for us to start. And I think you had an anecdote of some community in Florida that put away some funds, and then there was question like, oh, that's too much. And then they used it rather quickly.
They've set up a couple of different climate accords in Florida, and you know, started addressing things and put some pumps in, but then you also have to look at the equity issue of where it's focused.
Yeah.
At
Okay.
times.
All right.
Just to give you a quick idea about resiliency, if you read the resiliency report for Philadelphia, it basically touches 0 on flooding, because the only area in the city of Philadelphia that's going to flood is by the airport, which does not affect the residents.
Right.
So it's more about the heat sink. It's more about when the power goes out, what do you do to keep medicines cold, and you know, asthma incident rates going up with the heat and everything like that.
Right.
Right. This is really forward thinking. It's really a different approach, and I think you've done a great job of putting this together. I want to know more about it. I did want to bring up the other ideas. You talked about creative city collected resiliency fee. We have a bullet, but there's a section on the back here that I think is of great importance to this committee. And that is the other ways to bring in funds. And that was the accommodations fee, the property tax increase, the building permit fees, and developer impact fees, which didn't show up on the screen, but those are all important things to this committee as we move forward.
And
And it may be 2 years from now.
Right.
It might be, right. So Betsy and I are focused, one of our tasks in our team is the accommodations fee. and we'll be looking at property tax. I know that Ellen Lorraine's already talked with her department heads on permit fee increases. And then I asked, Betsy and I asked Khalil to reach out to the developers, and he has some information now for us on how the developers would participate with a developer impact fee, and where in the pipeline of developing and construction they would recommend that. So those pieces are coming in on the revenue side. But absolutely, I agree with you, Joe. They're all part of this
Yeah, and that's
equation.
starting to think like Maryland with the DNR trust fund.
Yep.
It is mostly funded through either the Bay Plate, the Chesapeake Bay license plates in Maryland, and car rental taxes.
Yeah.
So all the tourists that fly into BWI and rent a car, there's a
Yes.
fee on that car rental that's paying for Chesapeake Bay cleanup.
So
It's not coming from, there's nothing from the state of Maryland written to DNR.
Yeah.
For that funding.
So that'll be interesting to look at what are our responsibilities in a resiliency fund to meet our needs to respond to a disaster. What does FEMA already do? And then maybe post-election, we could talk to whoever wins to start talking about the state level. Right now, I don't think I want to have a conversation with anybody at this point.
Oh.
Okay, because of timing, a couple of things that I want to share before we go into public comments. I know Carrie and Joe, you have been working, thank you, Brent. You've been working on the nonprofit, and you have some things just to share, not to share for a discussion because they weren't part of our agenda, but we will address those next time we meet. But Carrie, do you want to just share what that where that information is?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. So we have, since the last meeting, we heard people discuss the idea that perhaps the fire hall would be separate from the grant application committee. So we've created a memo on that. That will be kept in the records for this subcommittee. We've also started to meet with our other nonprofits to see how they're going to fit in the big picture. We've met with Lewis and Bloom. That memo is also contained will be contained in the record of the show.
Terrific. Thank you. So that resource page is always evolving, and I say that to the public as well as the subcommittee.
And I do think it's important, as we're gathering this information, to keep in mind that these are draft documents. And that as we gain more information, or perhaps some of that information may be disputed, that part of the record will be changed.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, each of them.
We welcome any comments people have that they would share with us.
We're kind
Terrific.
of doing a little study to find out what's going on. We're
Okay.
information seeking.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. Comments, Blue, is anybody online with a hand raised? Is anybody online? In person? So if you have a question, if you're listening in, please put your hand up. If not, anybody in the public today that would like to? No? Okay. All right. So our next meeting is going to have, and I'll work, Ellen Lorraine, with Ashley on the agenda items. We are going to go longer next time. There's no way we can go through the city recommendations. So we will, on the agenda, we're going to be addressing whatever you guys need to about follow-up discussions. So I'm going to have an agenda item allowing each of the task groups. I'm going to do that on every agenda going forward. And then you can always say, I have nothing to report. That's fine, but I want it on the agenda so that the public knows we will always do updates. I will take on the responsibility to come up with a concept for our November 21st public meeting. And I'll share that. That'll be my action to get a framework of how that meeting could run. Charlie, I think you got clear marching orders of things we're going to need. And Brent, we're going to meet with you as a separate committee. What I would say, Ellen Lorraine, I know you've been meeting, and your department heads and Janet have all been meeting. And I know this is a heavy lift now. We are re-engineering, and it is a heavy lift. I say that at every meeting. It is. And it's going to be several years, 2 years to implement the kinds of things we're talking about. What are the things that I would like to hear when your department heads meet with us is not the wish list of every item. I mean, I don't think any of us need that granular detail, but we want to get a feel of what is a department trying to accomplish. So it's tell us, and I say the story. So it's the preamble or the purpose. So in this department, when we look long-term, this is a multi-year budget, but it's also the substance. What we're trying to do is whatever it is, we're going to really focus on efficiency. What we need to do is we have to expand our workforce because X demand is happening to us. We have to, so it's not just the numbers, it's to hear from them kind of overall, but they're only going to get about 10 minutes each. So I don't need to hear none of us need the whole story. You two have had to hear the whole story, but they've got to do that. I know you've been asking them, prioritize, but it's not a prioritization of, these are my 3 priorities of a wish list. It's because I have a vision for what I want to do. And you and Janet are going to have that overall because you've been hearing, or I've been hearing, if I were in your seat, some needs for new personnel going forward to be able to manage grants, to do public relations, all those different kinds of things that you've been hearing from different departments.
Yes,
Okay.
we have been meeting with managers and I just asked for some understanding because this is a new process for most of them. It is a learning process and Janet and I have been trying to address concerns that they have as well as provide guidance. Some are gonna have a little more of a struggle, but we're
Yeah.
all gonna work together to do this. So any additional information you can share to help make it better, we're open to that. But I just ask for patience as we work through this.
Absolutely. It is a different way to think, but from a finance standpoint, it's the way to uncover what might be happening. So, it's the difference of operating budgets and strategic budgets. So, but it's a change. It's a
Mhm.
big sea change. Yeah, without
Amy,
question.
can I ask you just briefly about the public workshop
Mhm.
piece? So you're going to have each of the subgroups within this finance subcommittee present
Yes.
initial findings?
Just initial findings or a framework, depending, everybody's in a different spot. But I'm going to have, where I am right now, and I'll send this out to all of you. Again, under FOIA, we're not replying all, but I'll have it to you within about a week so that you'll have time to think about it. But my initial concept is, yes, we would say, here's what our subcommittee's been working on. And here are the main kind of recommendations or framework or wherever we are in the process. And then, so that's going to take probably the first 45 minutes.
So just on that piece, I would want to be sure that we had run this by you so
Yes.
that we don't recommend something that
Yes,
you're not gonna.
that was nice of you. I appreciate that. I would say run it by Ellen
Yeah,
Lorraine as
yeah.
well, so she's comfortable. Yeah, no, exactly. So we would have that conversation. And then what I'm thinking about is monopoly money for the citizens to say, we're going to give you $200. First, tell us where you would like the city to invest. So they may say, I really want to do it in the nonprofit grants. I like the presentation, but I think we should spend much more money there. Or I think we should do a resiliency fund. I'm all in. Then when they tell us what they want and they do it by spending their money, we then say, how would you pay for that? Now you have your money back. Tell us how to pay. So it's, wish lists are easy, but how do you pay? So I'm kind of putting them in council's shoes, to say they're trade-offs. So where do you want to do it? Oh, I believe an increase in property tax is right. I don't think we should do anything on property tax. I think everything should go into the grant machinery. That way, Ellen Lorraine takes this back too. And so when she briefs council, that's my concept of how we do it. So it's a little talk down first. I mean, presenting, and then it's really citizens telling us they're
Right.
the taxpayers and how do they want to, and do they have other ideas? Do they have things like, I think we should increase, and I'll do the parking at the beach one because that's been discussed. Some people are for it, some people are very against it, but this is their opportunity to say, I think we're missing some opportunity in revenue, and they can suggest. So that's the concept, and we're going to repeat it twice. I just want to also say the subcommittee, because I know you're not on and don't need to be on every council meeting. Ellen Lorraine is keeping council current on what we're doing. So this is not that the council, plus you have 2 council members here and another council member who usually attends this. They're being kept current so that it doesn't start from fresh in February. Okay. So they're staying with us because it's a change for council as well. But they're telling me it's a welcome change. We'll see.
Amy, one suggestion, instead of $200, give everybody $100, then every dollar they spend is 1%.
Oh.
Easy
nice
math.
idea. Easy math. Okay, good. I'll do 100. Yeah, it's really the discipline of
Give
you
them
have very little to spend.
$101 bill.
$101 bill. And I, as a facilitator, I've done this for Department of Army and others. It's so funny. Some people spread their $1 across you know, every single one, because that's the Jeffersonian equality side of them. And other people say, I'm putting all my money on this one. And it's very fun to see that process. So good suggestion. Okay, any other comments? If not, I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All right, thank you. See you in 2 weeks. Thank you very much. And thank you, GMB, for your presentations.
Yeah,